let me install Docker. Do you guys have instances on with you?
No, Ashok.
Have you done the assignment? Have you pulled the request, merged it?
Yeah, yes, Ashok.
Okay. So
I'm practicing it one more time, Ashok, like from the start.
okay. What about the GitHub file? What is the tag you have given?
I didn't perform it, Ashok, that task. I was in from starting. I'll perform today, Ashok.
Ashok, actually, just a second, Ashok. I just made a commit. Like I had that code error yesterday, so I changed the code and again I committed it to the master repo.
Okay.
Sorry, I did not add the tag. I missed it, Ashok. Sorry. I've changed the code. I've committed it and merged with the master repo. Made a pull request and merged it, Ashok.
Okay. Let's keep like this only. Okay. Now, what were we doing? Let's create a Docker file. Meanwhile, so what was the commands which we run yesterday?
From Ubuntu.
Docker PS and Docker, Vim Docker, Ashok, Docker file. From Ubuntu run apt get update. No, Ashok, no, Ashok. Add, we need to add, right, Ashok?
Oh, you want to add? Okay. What was that? What was the add?
Yesterday, what?
Add index.
Okay.
Index space slash slash www slash html slash space index.
Okay.
Run apt get. Here, if you give apt install, it will directly install, Ashok.
Yeah, it will take a apt get or apt install. It will both for work, but we don't want to make confusion, so just keep.
-12.
Then expose
After
80.
this,
Expose 80.
okay.
Ashok, why are you giving here like from caps, add caps, run caps? Why, Ashok?
That was the rule if you want to write a Docker file. That is the rule. From, add, run, these are all the commands which Docker understands. Okay, if these are the commands are running, so this was the thing which they actually designed the Docker, how to write the Docker files. Okay, why was error is coming?
Index file is not existing. We need to create an index file.
Okay. Okay, one has been gone and other one is still there. Now, Docker PS, it will show. If you give Docker PS -a, it will show the what are the exited container it is there. It will show you. Right now we don't have anything. Let's run that.
Existed content it will show up.
Okay.
Ashok.
Whatever you have exited the containers. Let me show you. Now it is running, right?
Yes, Ashok.
Yes, yes, running.
Now the container is running. If we hit this portal, it should work out, right?
Security group, Ashok, we need to add.
What is in the security group launches are done? Okay, I have added a different security group.
We need to give anywhere, Ashok, over there.
Why it is not running? Any idea, guys?
We need to open in new terminal, Ashok.
Why
Yeah.
you need to
Duplicate it.
Duplicate.
Why it is not running? The port is already there, right?
Yes, Ashok.
VT
Then
has been already there.
customer anywhere, Ashok. It'll work for both, Ashok.
If you it first takes anywhere IPv4 only. After that, it will change to custom only. If I add any new role, it will first time it takes it as custom only if you are doing something. Automatically takes. After that, it will be changed to custom. That's fine. Tell me why this is not running. Yesterday you have been in the class. Tell me why the Nginx is not running in the port. It is not running on the EC2 instance IP. Why?
Like we need to duplicate this terminal, Ashok, and we need to check.
No, we NGX will not run in EC2 thing, no, Ashok.
No. We need to copy paste here, Ashok. Docker.
Why it is not running?
Docker -t Docker. We need to run, Ashok.
Run image ID.
The Docker is already running, guys. The Docker container is already running. So tell me why I am not able to hit the Nginx.
We need to specify the port number, Ashok. P1, P2. We didn't mention here.
Yes, that's right. Because in the EC2 instance which I am running, it is not exactly having given the port number, because here it is running on the port 80 of the Nginx container, but not on the EC2 IP. On the EC2 IP, so I need to mention the port. Okay, let me do one thing. I will give 80, then after that I will change.
It will not run, Ashok. Now we need to start.
Now another one has been started. Now if I hit the portal, now it's running, right?
Yes, sir.
Let me add a different rule. Now I'm changing to the port 82. Whether it will run or not, tell me.
It will run, Ashok.
Why?
Here we are modifying only the port number, first P1 port number, Ashok.
Okay.
It is above TCP, like whatever we are given HTTP 80, from that range to it is above.
Oh, really? Okay. Let me do one thing then. Now tell me whether it will run or not.
It will run, Ashok.
Okay.
I guess so.
Since we are
We should
changing
have this.
of EC2, so it should run, Ashok.
Okay. Okay. The Nginx is started and let me see it's running or not. Okay. It is running. Now let me see to the container and hit the sudo docker ps. Okay. The container is running. Okay. Now let me refresh it. Why guys? Why it is not running? The Nginx is running. The Docker container is on. Why it is not running?
82 TCP. There we have deleted the HTTPS, Ashok.
HTTPS is still there. It is there.
Ashok, HTTP.
The all TCP value is there. Why it is not running? What is the port I have given?
Port number 82, Ashok.
82.
So on what port I'm exactly hitting right now?
80.
So if I give here 82, will it work?
No, Ashok. It's working.
How it is working? How it is working? The port 82 is working now. How?
We mentioned here the port number 82, Ashok, so it might be. Before that, it is taking for 80, and here we have mentioned 82.
So that's the reason you have to mention 82. This was the reason I said change the P1 value and try. Okay, let me exit. Now tell me whether in which port this will work. Which port this will work?
It will work on 100, Ashok. 80 and 100.
Okay. So what should I do here?
We need to mention 100 over there, Ashok,
In there.
in place of 82.
Okay.
There it is full stop or semicolon, Ashok.
Semicolon.
Yesterday I was
Not
trying
in-
with full stop, Ashok. That was a mistake.
That's colon. You have to use colon. The port number. Now tell me whether this will work or not.
It will work, Ashok.
It's working, Ashok.
No, it's not. Not working.
Why? Now tell me why it is not working. On the port 100, the Docker container is still running. Then why it is not working?
It is. Is it greater than that range of TCP, Ashok? 80, whatever we specified.
Tell me why it is not working.
We need to mention two in between two HTTP values in which value it falls.
Two HTTP values. HTTP will always be run on port 80 only. You
And
can't
HTTP,
change this value. This will always run on port 80 only. HTTP value will always run on port 80. SSH value will always run on the port 22. HTTPS will always run on the port
443.
443. So why it is not running? If you remember it clearly, I have mentioned a rule when I was just starting this one. What was the rule? Always use all TCP. This is the one which allows the transmission protocol. 0 to 6 means in between, if you give one also, it will take care of running the port in that value. Now, if I hit the same thing, it will run.
Here, all TCP takes the value from 0 to 665, Ashok.
Yes, in between whatever the range you give, it will take care of and it will run the Nginx. If you give 100, if you give 1000, if you give anything, it will run. Okay. Now, tell me, Docker build. And the first time when I have run the file Docker build, how much time it took for us when we ran for the first time?
It was downloading, installing, and creating the container, Ashok. It took
Okay, now,
almost
okay, tell me.
less than a minute.
Less than a minute. Okay, now how much time it is taking?
In seconds, Ashok.
Why?
Seconds.
Why?
We have already created the container, Ashok. It will store now the container is created. It will push the values to that.
Container already created. No.
No, I mean, Docker file, whatever we built, there we have given the topmost value like heading, and we have given the different specification, like whatever needs to be run in that.
Read the whatever
Ashok,
is present on the screen. Read it correctly and tell me.
since it is already built first for the first time, why it took so much of time was it started building from the scratch. For the second
Okay.
time, it was already built, so it just displayed the built commands. So it happened soon.
Come on again, Puneet, for the second time.
Since it was already built, the command was already built, it just displayed it, so it took a less time.
No. If you see, every time means okay. Okay, let me do one thing. So you are saying that the file is already built, so that's the reason it was running it. Okay.
Ashok, maybe because the cache gets refreshed every time, so it displays soon, Ashok.
Okay. Let me do it one thing. Now I'm building the file. Now tell me how much time it will take. Now tell me how much time it took.
5 or 6 seconds. 5 or 6 seconds.
Okay, now how much time it took?
Less than a second.
Less than a second.
Why? Guys, if you see clearly, here comes the main important point. How exactly the Docker system builds the Docker image? How exactly the Docker system builds the Docker image? Let me explain. So if you see, so if you have seen the Docker system, we are discussing how the Docker system builds the Docker image. We need to check how the Docker system is building the Docker image from the Docker file. How? See, there is a possibility, as we know that first, if you have a Docker file, that will be done. What it will create? If you run Docker build, it will create what it will create, guys.
Docker image.
And with the Docker image, what we will get if you run that?
Docker
Container will be created.
Sorry?
Container will be created, Ashok.
Yeah. See, when the Docker builds the Docker image from the Docker file, and when you run the Docker image, it will create a Docker container. And the Docker container, with the Docker container, we can rebuild the image. With the Docker container, we can go back and build a Docker image. With the Docker container, you can go back and build the Docker image again. But with the Docker image, you will not be able to do a Docker file. This is not possible. The reverse is only possible when the Docker container takes, again, it can build a Docker image. But with the Docker image, you will not be able to build a Docker file. This way it follows, but up to like this way it works out. This is a straightforward way: Docker file, Docker image, Docker container. But the other way, it will goes up to Docker container and it goes up to Docker image. With the Docker container, you can rebuild the Docker image. You can build the Docker image. The reverse is possible. But with the Docker image, you will not be able to build a Docker file. So here, if you see, whenever I'm running the Docker build, it is first. Now we will be talking about the layer concept. What is the layer concept? From the first time, when you are running the Docker build, the Docker system first creates an image. On top of the image, with that image, it will create a Docker container in the first place. On top of the Docker container, it will run this line. After running this line, it will create a new image. The temporary Docker container will be terminated, and along with this image, it will run a new Docker container. I'm repeating, guys. When you run the Docker build, the Docker build means the Docker system will build a Docker container with the Docker image, the one which you have got it. This is an intermediate Docker image. This is the intermediate Docker images. This Docker image, it will create a Docker container. On top of the Docker container, it will run this line. Once this line has run, it will create a new Docker image. New Docker image. This with this Docker image, it will create a new Docker container, and the temporary Docker container which has been run here, it will be terminated. Now with this Docker image, it created a new container. On top of this container, again it ran this line. Again it ran this line. This will create a new Docker image. New Docker image. And on top of that, with this image, it has created another Docker container, and it terminated the temporary Docker container again. Now with this image, it created a new Docker container. On that top of Docker container, again it ran this line and created a new image. With this image, it is going to create a new container by terminating the old one, the temporary one. On top of this Docker container, again it ran this line. With this line, it created a new Docker image, and it terminated this Docker container. And with this Docker image, it created a new Docker container. New Docker container. On top of the Docker container, it ran this one. When it is the last step, when it is as the last step, then it terminates the whole temporary Docker container and will give only the Docker image.
It will give new Docker image, Ashok.
Yes, if you see here, you are seeing a Docker image, right? This
That
is the
will
last Docker image. This is it sees how many steps are there. If you are 5 steps, 6 steps, how many steps are there? Let me. See, every time when having the 5 steps, it stopped exactly at the 5th step and created the Docker image for me. With this image, if I run, I will be creating a Docker container. So every time when you run, from the base, it will create a Docker image. With this Docker image, will be creating a Docker container. On top of that container, it will be running this line, and it will create a new Docker image, and it will terminate the temporary Docker container. With this image, it will be run a new Docker container. On top of the Docker container, it will run again this line. So when this line runs, it will create a new Docker image, and it will terminate this temporary container which has run with this image. It will terminate, and with this Docker image, it will create a new container. Again, on top of that Docker container, it will run this line with this line, and it will create a new Docker image, and that Docker image will create a new Docker container, and this temporary Docker container which has been run with this image will be terminated. And once when this Docker container is running, it will take this line and it will create a new image. This image will see, and once this image is created, this will terminate this Docker container and sees that okay, there are no more steps. Okay, we are going to stop it here, and that will be given as an image to us. Let me know if you have understood, because no one will explain you the process, how exactly the Docker builds, how the Docker system builds the Docker images from the Docker file. No one will explain. If you go into YouTube also, it will not be provided. This is a basic concept, how exactly the Docker builds the Docker image from the Docker file. If you are able to understand this, the Docker will be very easy for you.
Ashok, in the file for every command, there is a separate container getting created, Ashok.
Yes, it will create every time a container. On top of that container, it will take the line every time. It will take this line and it will create from that container. It will create a image, new image. As I said, as I mentioned here, this from the Docker container, you can create the Docker image, but from the Docker image, you will not be able to create the Docker file. This is possible. So that's the way. This is the reason it is working. That is the reason from this top of the Docker container, when with this run, it creates a new Docker container. On top of the Docker container, it will run this line, which will create a Docker image, and it will terminate this temporary Docker container. And with this image, again, it will create a new container. On top of that container, this line will run, and same vice versa it follows. Tell me if you have understood correctly. I'm going to repeat it again and again. This is a basic if you need to understand, because first time when it ran, it took 1 minute or maybe less than 1 minute. But when it's running for the second time, it is creating from the cache, because these are all present in the cache. These are all images are present in the Docker. These are all files are present in the Docker. Where exactly the files are present, I'm going to show you. But tell me, are you able to understand how the Docker system is building the Docker images from the Docker file?
Yes, Ashok.
Yes, Ashok.
Okay.
From the container, we are able to create a Docker image, but from the image, we will not be able to create the Docker file.
Yes. First, we will go to change the active variable. Now we are going to go to live. Now, if you do ls, here there are many files. You will be able to see Docker. See here. Now change directory Docker. Okay, use sudo.
Switching the user.
Now, if you see here, now go to image. Ls. Now go to overlay 2. ls. Now go to image db. Now go to metadata. Now change to SHA 256. See guys, if you see clearly, if you see what is the line here, 3321 A7 EB.
Image, Docker image.
3321 ACB. And what was the line again? FC, F3127 FB, F8. This is on F3127. And what is the double E? Where is the double E? Here, double E 513507. D0. Where is the D0? Here, do 0. So these are all the images. These images has been kept in the Docker, where when you are calling it for the second time, it is taking from the cache. It is keeping it. Okay, you don't have to run it again. It is taking it. It is taking the consideration. Okay, now you don't have to. I will take care. I will use it from the cache. You don't have to rebuild the file again. You don't have to rebuild the image. The image is already presented. I will just take it from the cache and I will run it. These images, these intermediate images which you are getting, these intermediate images, that's like step 4, step 3, step 2, step 1. These are all the intermediate images, like step 4, step 3, and the step 2. These intermediate images are present here. We will be able to see only the last final image to us. It is giving Docker images. If you click on the Docker images, see here we are getting only the base image, and after that the final image which we have created, the final image. The intermediate images means the step 4, step 3, step 2 are all present here. It will be you will be having all the images, but the intermediate images is not giving to us, but these are all present in the Docker, in the Docker folder. Where it is present? Where lib Docker. An important interview question, if someone asks how exactly the Docker builds the Docker image from the Docker file, you will be able to answer by showing him in in a visualization way. This is the way it shows. This is the way it works out. This is the way you have to show them. This is the way you have to tell them. Tell me guys, have you got anything? Are you able to understand? Are you guys able to understand?
Yes, Ashok.
Now, I have told you how exactly the Docker file has been running on it. How exactly we are able to see the files. Now suppose this cache, whatever has been there in the Docker file, like the layer which we have worked out. Now, as we have seen, so here, if you see, there are layers like the first layer L1, L2, L3, L4, L5. There were 5 steps. Now, if I introduce some new step here, how many caches it will consider and what are the new ones it will build? Just now, before that, I have run a command line CMD, and after that, you have seen that it has done some different things. So, if I am using a layer adding in between, if I am adding a new step in between the Docker file, so from where the cache will be considered, how it will build a new thing.
It will not be able to build, Ashok, because from image it will not be able to build a new. Sorry, I'm wrong.
What about you, Ashwin?
Sorry, Ashok, I got disconnected. Like, what was the question, Ashok? Sorry.
There are 5 layers, means there are 5 steps in the Docker file.
Okay.
Now I'm adding a step in between.
Okay.
How many layers it will consider the cache and how many new steps it will create?
Only one new step it will create, Ashok. Like
Okay.
L1 it will take cache, L2 it will take cache, L3 it will take. For L3.1 it will create a new thing, and L4 old, and from no Ashok, from 3.1 4 5 it will take 3 new.
Yes, that's right.
Why? Because from that step we are changing the process, like it is restarting again. New
Now
cache will be stored.
let me add a file on the third step. If I build this file, so see the exact program, how exactly it is running. Okay, it will take. I don't want to add this here. Now see the cache and tell me where exactly it is building it.
From 3.1.
Puneet, tell me where exactly it started. From where exactly it has been taken the consideration. Where exactly it started building the new container. See, if you see clearly here,
Immediate.
removing immediate intermediate container. See, it created means once it on this top of this one, it created a new image. On top of that one, it created a container. And once it has been done, it is removing it. And again, it is creating this one. See, if you see clearly, understanding the point, it is removing the container means it is considering the one, it is considering, it is running a container. If you have added a new step, it is taking that one on top of this one, it is creating a new container because it's not in the cache. This line has been added newly. On top of this line, it is creating a new one where it has given this image, or with this image, it is created a container. And again, on top of this one, this line runs. So then it is removing this container and creating a new image. And when it is a new thing, because it is a new line has added, so it doesn't go to the cache. It started building the package again. And see, again, it removed the container and it built a new image. If I do Docker images,
Ashok, sorry to interrupt. One doubt, Ashok here.
yes,
Whatever the Docker image we have created, on top of that, with the same Docker image to create container, right, Ashok?
yes, yes, that's right. It will create a new Docker. See, if you see every time it is creating, it is removing the intermediate container. Every time on this image, it is creating a container and it is removing it of that image container of that one. See, now if you see, there are many things, many images. This is the process. This is the way how you gonna tell if anyone asks how the Docker system. See, I'm saying it frankly, no one will explain you this thing on the Docker build, how exactly the Docker file gets built from the Docker file, how the Docker images has been built from the Docker file. No one will explain you these things. No one will explain you. You should be having this knowledge. As a DevOps engineer, it is a very good thing if you know this, how exactly the Docker system builds. If you have anything who is actually working on the Docker, if you ask him also, maybe a 4 or 5 years experience guy, if you ask him how the Docker system builds the Docker image from the Docker file, they will not be able to explain. They will say it's just building it. It's just the process that's running. You will be having an advantage if you know this, how exactly the Docker system builds the Docker image from the Docker file, how exactly the cache works, how exactly it is taking care of it, how exactly it is working on it, how exactly it is creating it. You should be having this knowledge. Any doubts?
Ashok, how does this Docker image numbering use, Ashok? Like that special ID, unique ID?
That's unique. That's Docker just directly takes care of it. That's unique. That we don't have anything because Docker directly builds that line. It takes care of it. Any unique special character.
From which point we are changing from there to change every from as you mentioned from 3.1, it has from 3.14 and 5, it has rechanged the new container, creating new thing.
Yes, it has gone, but it is not available in the cache.
Cache.
From there, it considered a new thing has been happened, so it started building newly. If I run this again, it is already there, so it will take everything from the cache. See,
Yes. Says 3.1 was not okay.
If we run for the second time also, the same ID it will be displaying, right, Ashok?
yes, see if you see here,
Docker
it's the same
container.
thing, right? This is the same thing. You are seeing it.
Yes, Ashok.
Any doubt, guys? Anything you have, any question you have, let me know. This is the basic you need to understand very goodly how the Docker file, Docker image is getting built from the Docker file.
Yes, Ashok.
Got it, Ashok.
Okay, now we will be talking about three main points. One is PID1, CMD command point, and entry point. What is PID1? What is PID1?
Process, maybe process
Process
ID.
ID.
Yes, that's a process ID. So whatever you are running after the image ID, or I'm repeating it again. Whatever if you are running, you are giving after the image ID, it will be considered as a command prompt. It will be considered as a command. Suppose if I am running here, if I am giving the bash here, if I am giving the bash, suppose if I don't give the bash, let's see what happens. Right, print hello. Okay, let me explain in a different way. Now tell me, if I build this image, no Docker images. This is the new one. Now, if I run this image, just running this image, Docker run minus IT,
IT.
ID, just running the image ID, what it will show, tell me.
It shows only command prompt.
Print the echo part.
Here, the command prompt, here, whatever the Docker, the command prompt, if you have given something in the command CMD, that will run as the process, that will run on the PID1, that will run as a PID1, whatever you have given in the command prompt, whatever you have given in the command in the Docker file, that will run as a PID1, process PID1. And if you give after the image ID, if you give after the image ID, if you are giving the Docker ID bash, this will override the command. This will override. This bash will be running on the process PID. This will run. This will override the command. It will also act as command only. The bash will act as a process PID1 for now. If you click on this, if you give PS, see on the PID1 process one, what is the one it is running?
Bash.
Yes, it is running bash command, Ashok.
This is the one. This is the one because the bash will be act as a process PID1. That was the reason in the process PID1. But if you run this one, if you removing it, if you are running this one, why it is only having the command? Because here it is running once the command, here the bash, the process is already running. The process once the what was the process? It was just only the CMD where we have just used the echo. So here the process ran, it printed that line and executed the container. If you see Docker PS, you will not get the container. See? But if you are running it bash, and if you click on the Docker PS, see,
Okay.
because the process, it has override the command prompt, it has override the command prompt, and now the bash is running in the PID1. Now the bash is running in the PID1. Very important question. Very important in the entry point of time. They will ask you these type of questions very clearly. Which thing will override, which doesn't? I will explain about the entry point. After that, I will be telling the same thing. The command, whatever if you give after the image ID, that will be taken as a command. That will be running as a process PID1. That will be running as a process PID1. This if the process PID1, if this is the main thing, if the PID1 is not on, if the PID1 is not there, then the container will not be running. It will be coming out of it. If the PID is not running, PID1 is stopped, then the process will not run. When the Docker container will not run at all. If you see PS, if you want to see PS, EAF, what is the one, grep. What was the grep minus help? Grep minus I think. Okay, see, whatever the PS, EF grep. Okay, let's leave it like that only. If we are running any other thing, I will show you. Whatever the process you are running after the image ID, it will be taken as the PID1 process. If you are not running, if you have mentioned something in the Docker file, now as I mentioned here, if you go back from here, and if you see Docker images, this was the one which is having the command prompt right now. If I am running Docker run -it, and if I'm running only that image, what was it was printing?
Hello.
It was taking,
Comment.
if you are seeing the Docker file, here it was printing only up to here. It was not considering this one. Now, if I run this one, to show you here, to see sudo docker ps, sudo docker ps. See, there is no container running, but if I run here after giving the bash, it is running. It is running because it is overriding the command prompt. It is overriding the command prompt. Now, if you go inside, of this, and if you see ps, it is running the bash. Now, if you see whether the Nginx is running or not, if you see here, if the Nginx is running or not, AF, Nginx. It has been root. Why it is coming like this? Just a minute, guys. PSEF grep Nginx. This is the one actually it has to show. PS1. I just want to. Okay, first I have to run the Nginx. Sorry. It's just the more constraint grep nginx. It's the actually command. Where exactly the process running? Grep nginx. Use logs. Yeah. See, now if you see here, what is the master process? The PID one, it is running on Nginx. It is running on Nginx. This is the one. Now the Nginx is running on the process PID one, the bash PS. If you give PS, the bash which is actually we are running it, it is running on the PID one. On top of that bash, if it is running Nginx, if you exit, then the container will be running. It's not, because here we have whatever we have done, whatever we have used, whatever we have built, whatever we have taken. If it is running only Docker, the command line, the CMD which you give inside the Docker file will be considered as the main thing. And once the command prompt, once the CMD line gets executed, it will not run it. But if you queue whatever been after the image ID, it will be taken as the PID1 process, where it will override the command which has been present in the Docker file. Now here, if you see PS, it will be running as a bash. Any questions you have about the command from CMD? Because there will be a particularly, if someone asks about Docker, the question will be, what is the main difference between CMD and entry point? I'm going to explain the entry point after this, but let me tell you what do you able to understand what is CMD? Yes, are you there?
Yes, Ashok. Yes, Ashok.
Are you able to understand?
Yes, Ashok.
It's a show. After the process ID thing, image
Image
ID,
ID.
it will override the command, Ashok.
So now let me go to this CMD diary. Use the file. And now see clearly what exactly it will be doing it. See clearly. I'm gonna ask you, you have to tell me. Tell me what exactly you are seeing.
It is in entry point, Ashok.
What was the total line?
It is displaying both CMD as well as entry point.
Yes.
Okay. But it is displaying in a single line. Why? And why the CMD has not been considered as only in a separate one?
Because whatever the above CMD, it will consider as after image file, whatever the CMD we give on top of CMD, whatever it is present, it will take directly to CMD.
Okay, let me do one thing then. Now tell me.
It is considering that Yashwant is also a CMD and it is not printing the line of CMD.
But here, how are you seeing clearly what exactly the entry point is doing?
Yes, Ashok.
Entry point is overriding CMD, Ashok.
Okay, and after that?
Whatever we give the name as Yashwant, it is considering as CMD, Ashok.
Guys, the important topic, the entry point, when you give entry point in the file, when you mention entry point in the Docker file, whatever the next command, the CMD, whatever you give, whatever you mention, this will become a parameter to the entry point. This will become a parameter. Now, if you see, if I am running the Docker run itdst, the image, it is taking after the entry point, whatever the CMD commands it has been present, it will be going as a parameter to the entry point. So that was the reason it was printing this. It was considering it as a parameter to the entry point, and it's printing to the entry point line itself. If I give anything after this, means here the bash, whatever the image ID after whatever we are running, it will be overriding the CMD, but it will never override entry point. Whatever may be give you after the image ID, it will override CMD, but it will never override entry point. It will never override entry point. See, it will take it as a parameter to the entry point. The CMD will be taken as a parameter to the entry point. Most important interview question, most important. If you are a 2+3+ or some anyone, the guys first point they will ask, what is the difference between entry point and CMD? You should be able to answer. You should not be able to answer just like the CMD overrides the bash which are you are giving, it will override, but you will not be able to override entry point. Not like this. You will be able to tell them why exactly the entry point you are not able to do it, because the CMD acts as a parameter to the entry point. So whatever you give, it will not be considered. It will not be override the entry point. Most important interview question. If you someone is asking about the Docker, they maximum touch this point.
Yes, Ashok. Got it.
Have you got this? I'm saying entry point and CMD, these are the most important question. You get it. The parameter, whatever the CMD you are giving, once you have been the entry point, it will consider as a parameter to the entry point. If the entry point is present in the Docker file, whatever the CMD you are giving, whatever you are giving, it will go as a parameter to the entry point. You will not be able to override entry point. But if it is only the CMD, and if you are giving after the image ID another CMD, that CMD will override the CMD present in the Docker file. The CMD which you have given after the image ID will override the CMD in the Docker file. But the CMD which you have given after the image ID will never be able to override it on the entry point. It will be also considered as a parameter to the entry point. Remember this, very, very useful for you. Very, very, very.
Whatever the bash command we give after image ID, it will consider the same thing, Ashok. It will be a parameter for entry point.
Yes, I just given it, right? You are seeing
Yes.
it.
Yes, Ashok. But it will not display in the PID, Ashok, first place.
How will it will display it? Because you are not actually entering into the command also, right? Because
Ah,
it has been the entry point. It is executing there itself. See, if you give sudo docker ps, you will not get anything because here it is not there. The entry point is the one where it overrides everything. It will be the one which will be having everything. The CMD will never be able to, you are not able to go inside of this one also. There is no container also created, because this is the one, the entry point takes everything. Once it is there, the CMD and whatever you all want to go inside, it will go as a parameter to the entry point. You will never be able to create a container at all. It is not possible.
Got it, Ashok.
Yes, Ashok. Where
Most,
exactly is it applied, Ashok? Like, what is the purpose of entry point?
see, you don't want to run anything. You don't want to use anything. The process PID, you don't want to run anything. You just want to print something and you want to just see. For that, you will just use these things, the entry point. Whatever you are, just read. If you go to Google and if you check it about it, you'll able to get see. If you want to run, we will be running in the daemon process. That is a totally different one. I will be explaining that one also. If you see the main difference, if you see main difference, where if I run it like this, so now if you go do sudo docker ps,
ITD.
D is a daemon process. If you want to run it in the daemon process, if you want to run it in the daemon process, then it will be taking care of it. Okay, it has not been created. Sorry. The container has been done and it has been printed and it has closed it also. In the meantime, it has went and it has done. I will explain the daemon process. Do you have any doubts on the entry point and the CMD?
No, Ashok. Definitely not.
No, Ashok.
Now, let's go back here. So as I mentioned, okay, as I mentioned, if you want to see all the exited containers, use docker ps minus a. It will show what are the containers we have printed. See, it executed the entry point line. It has executed. See, if you see all the lines which we have run, whatever the containers we have run, if you know, these are the container IDs. This is the image ID. When it is created and when it is executed, what was the status? See, exited. These are all the exited containers. If you want to see docker ps minus say, will show you this status, what are all the exited containers we are having. These names are being given by the docker itself. These are unique names. These are all the container IDs.
Ashok, here minus A stands for Ashok.
What are the exited IDs are there, man? You just do it. Means you don't have to know, have to know the example also. What is exactly that minus A is? It will show whatever has been there, whatever has been there. Information available, everything, whatever means, whatever you are having. Like, if you want to have a clear example, where is it? Page. Hmm. Come on. Give me guys. Mhm. Yashwant,
Yes, Ashok.
here.
Got it, Ashok. In interview, they'll not focus on this, Ashok. Like -8. Suddenly, if they ask,
See, you are able to see now, right? What is -C?
yes, Ashok.
It shows all the containers, means whatever you have run up to now, whatever you have done. See, if a container is already running now, suppose, let me do one thing. This was on, right? Okay, now here it is running, right? Now,
Yes,
if I give it is running. If I give sudo docker ps -a,
it will display.
it will also still see the status will also show. It will display everything. We don't want to see what how many. See, if you are running hundreds of containers, all the containers which have stopped, it will be showing here. So that will be a hectic problem to see. Why you want to see? Because that's the reason we use this docker ps to see only the status, what are all the containers it is running. Sorry. Now you understood.
Yes, Ashok.
Yes, Ashok.
So command and entry point, CMD and entry point. What we have discussed up to now here, CMD and entry point is done.
PID.
Yeah, that's a process. That is obviously the process PS. This was the process which you are will be seeing. The PS, the bash will be running. I want to discuss one more thing. What was it? CMD entry point. Just a minute, guys. Wait a minute. What was the line I want to show you? Yeah, here. Right. Okay. Here, exited. Now, if you see, every time I can't go as a command, right? Every time I don't want to go as a command prompt. Every time I don't want to give the bash. If I'm not giving the bash, every time it is not working it out. Every time it is not making me understood what exactly is happening. If I'm using, I want to run it in a daemon process, means I don't want to see what exactly is happening. Now, if I run docker run -it and this image like this, and if I'm running it, it is directly contained because the command prompt, it is taking this one as directly on the command prompt. But I don't want to go every time inside into the root, and I want to see how exactly it is running perfectly. So what we will do is that we will run this image, the container in the daemon process, where you will not be able to see how exactly it is running. See, now if you do docker ps, container is running. This is the container ID. This is the container starting line C3AC. This is the container ID because here it is executed. It is executed the container. It is running. The container is running perfectly. We are not going here. See, every time when I'm running like this, when I'm running, it is running on my system. It is showing me system continuously. But I don't want to do that. Every time I can't see when I'm running this thing. Every time it is doing the root. I have to go inside and I have to see. But if I have to check it out, I want to run it as a daemon process where it runs in the background. You don't have to take care. You have to mention -itd on that after D. If you do it, it is running like this. Now, if you want to go into this container, what is the command? Docker execute container ID. Just a minute, guys. Using Docker execute -itd and a command in a running container. Line from wait a minute, guys. Yes, bash has to be. Sorry, my bad. If you want to go inside, if you want to go inside of this container, if you want to go inside of this container, we have to mention docker execute -it and whatever it has been running the bash, we have to give bash docker execute. This will be the, if someone asks if you are running a daemon process, how to go into the container, we have to mention docker execute -it, the container ID, and after that, if you are going to the root, we have to mention bash. We have to check whether it is running or not. Service.
Ashok, sorry to interrupt, but for daemon process, we need to write ITD, right, Ashok?
We are running as a daemon process, but we are going into the container. You should not mention -itd.
Okay.
Because see, if you see docker execute -d, it will detach the command in running in the background. If you use -itd, it will detach the one running the command in the background. It will detach from here and it will make sure it will run here itself. So this is how the container we are going to inside, and we have to see the image, how exactly we are running. This is a daemon process, how we are exactly running. If you exit here, but still the process will be running. We have exited, but still the container is still running. But before that, when we used to not to give as a docker daemon, to stop it, docker stop container ID. Oh, come on. See, now if you run docker ps, see, it is not there. But before, when we doesn't give the itd, how we used to run docker run.
Bash.
If I'm not giving the daemon value, if I'm not running the daemon value, if I'm not running the daemon value, what? It is showing me directly, it was showing me the bash here itself. If I'm executing here, so if I'm seeing here now, the Docker will be running. If I give Docker PS, it is running. Now, if I exit from here, no container, because this is the process. This was the process. It was running on the PID1. Obviously, it was working on it. Obviously, it was running on the PID process. So obviously, once it has been closed, the PID process import. Remember this, guys. Whatever the CMD runs on the PID1, if that PID process is stopped or closed or exited, the container will crash. The container will crash because here the CMD runs on the PID1. The CMD runs on the PID1. So if the PID1 process is stopped or exited or deleted, the Docker will container will stop working. It will be crashed. It will not work at all. This was the reason. See, if we are running it here, so if we are running, I'm in the bash file. So now if I am seeing, if you are seeing, it is running on the process. See, if you see PS, it is running, it the bash, it is on the PID process. Now, if I am exit from here, I am exiting from the bash, I am exiting from the container itself, from directly from the PID process. So obviously the container will not run because I'm exiting directly from the bash. That was the reason we run it in the daemon process, so that it runs in the background. And if we exit also, it doesn't have to work it out. Now, if you see Docker PS, this new container has been there. Now, if you want to go inside of the container, Docker execute -it and the container hash. Now, if I exit, if I see the PS process, it is running. Now, if I exit here, if I exit, see, if I am still here, here the Docker PS is there. Now, if you see the container is still running. Now, if I'm exit from here, if I'm exiting from the here, but still if I do it here, Docker PS, it will be still running because I am running the process in the daemon. I'm running it in the background. I'm not touching the bash at all. Still the container is running. To stop the container from the daemon process, you have to use Docker stop container ID. Docker stop container ID. Any questions you have, guys, up to now? Whatever we have done, whatever we have discussed.
No, Ashok.
Ashok, sorry, but like kindly repeat the last part, Ashok, which you said, like exiting and that part.
See, if you are running normally without the daemon process, now what was the problem here? I was running without the daemon process. I was running directly. I was running the file. I was running Docker run -itd bash.
Need to
I was
enter.
here. The process is running on the PID1. If the PID1 process is stopped or deleted or exited, the container will get crashed. Means here we are running the bash on the PID1, on the process PID1. We whatever maybe the process are running on the PID1. If this process PID1 gets deleted or exited or stopped, you will be crashing the container. You will be crashing the container. If you see here, Docker PS, the container is running. Now I'm exiting from the bash because the bash is running on the PID1. Now if once I'm exiting, the container will automatically gets corrupted because the container is not running. Because the main process which I'm running on the PID1, it is I'm coming out of it. To execute this reason, what we have done, we are running the image, the container in the daemon process so that we can't see. We don't have to stop the PID process if we come out of also. Now, if you see, if you do Docker PS, the container is running. Now, if I want to go inside of this container and want to see what exactly is been in the process, Docker execute -it, the container ID and bash. Now, if you see here, PS, it is running. Now, if you work it out, service nginx start, service nginx status, Now, if I exit here, if I exit from here, the Nginx will still be running, means the containers will be still be running. If you see Docker PS, the daemon process. But before that, when we are not using the daemon process, it was killing the container because it was running the process on the PID1. Now, if you are exiting, the daemon process will be taking care in the background. It is to stop this Docker stop container ID. This will stop the container. Any questions, Punit?
Got it, Ashok. Got it.
Now, very common mistakes will be done by, because see, every time you can't go and start the Nginx, right? Once the Nginx is done, every time you can't go inside, you want to run it manually, automatically. So what will be the engineers doing here? So a basic common mistake. Basic common mistake. Basic common mistake. Tell me what was wrong here.
Ashok, can you answer that, Ashok? Please. It in. It is in the.
No.
It is in single quotes, Ashok, in between.
Yeah, I know that. Okay. Actually not run. Now tell me.
We have mentioned in the square brackets, Ashok. It will not take, I guess.
CMD will always be mentioned in the square brackets.
Okay.
CMD will always be mentioned in the square brackets. Understand, use the logic, whatever you have learned up to about the CMD.
Oh, CMD should be after the add command, right, Ashok?
Understand the logic, logic, or whatever the main, very biggest DevOps engineers do, these thing, very silly mistakes. Whatever they do, this is a very silly mistake they do every time when they run the Nginx. What was the problem?
First, we need to check the status.
Yes, what exactly CMD does?
It displays, Ashok.
What it does?
It will execute the entered command, Ashok.
The CMD will run the PID1 process. The CMD, whatever you give the CMD, that will be the PID1 process. Whatever been in the Docker file, if you want to override after the image ID, whatever you will be giving, that will override the CMD in the Docker file, that will run as a PID1. So whatever I am giving here in the CMD, that will run as a PID1 process if I am not giving anything after the image ID. So here the CMD has been given as service nginx restart. Whether this will run or not. Let me close my sharing for 2 minutes. I just want to see how exactly you guys are gonna tell me. Now tell me.
If bash is used, definitely it will run that command line, Ashok. It will go to the PID one. It will override. Bash will override so that command will not get executed only. Ashok?
Bash will override. Come again.
After like in the file we added that CMD line, is it not, Ashok? After that we will run the container. I mean, we'll create the container by giving the docker run -it image id and bash, no, Ashok. That command line will not get executed only because since we will use bash, it will override that command line.
Wait a minute. Okay, what about you, Yashwant?
Ashok, as the, bash command will be overriding CMD command, but here it should display Ashok. That's it. That's what I.
Why you are saying about display? I'm not able to understand why you are talking about the display. Why you are thinking it will display? Okay, let me do one thing.
Nginx restart.
Okay, now tell me what it will do. Now I'm going to build Docker. Okay, now I'm running this image. Now tell me what exactly it is doing.
The daemon process is running, Ashok.
What exactly I have written here?
Nginx minus
Daemon is off.
Daemon is off. Daemon is.
Now, if I do docker ps, now the command is running, right?
Yes,
Now, docker execute -it, the container ID.
Bash.
Now, if I do ps, okay, now ps -eal. Now, tell me what exactly you are able to understand. If I use service nginx restart, what it will happen?
Now it's running, Ashok.
Okay, now if I do service nginx restart, what will it happen?
Oh, it will again start from the first, Ashok. Like running process will be refreshed.
Okay, what about you, Punit? Punit, are you there?
Yes, yes, Ashok. I'm here. It is already running, so
What exactly the restart does? What is meant by restart?
it will terminate the current running process and again restart.
Again start, stop
Again,
and start, right?
yes.
Okay, now what exactly is running on the PID process?
Yeah.
If I run this nginx restart, why it has exited from the container? Guys, understand the CMD, understand, use the logic. Up to now, I have told you CMD from the past 45 minutes. You
Ashok.
will be able to answer this question easily.
It is again starting the process from first, Ashok.
Okay, then why it got exited from the container?
They have restarted the system, like that background process.
Guys, the PID process one, what exactly it was running? The bash one, the
Right.
bash, what exactly it was running? Nginx. If we are restarting it, we are stopping the Nginx. If we are stopping the Nginx, means automatically we are stopping the PID one process. So obviously it will come out of the container. This is a common mistake whoever has been a DevOps engineer will do in the first place. They will always try to use service nginx restart. This is a wrong way. You will never be able to understand. You will never be able to understand why exactly you are exiting from the container. This is the same way. This is the same way if you are running vim docker file, and in the cmd they are going to keep service nginx restart, which will make the command prompt, means the pid process get stopped, and it will not restart. Because why it will stop? Once the pid process has been stopped, it will come out of the container.
This container gets crashed.
Yes.
Use the logic, understand. You have learned the cmd right now. You should be able to answer this question. Docker run. Now if I want to, if you ask me how exactly we need to start the nginx, if there is any issue, I want to start the nginx, I have made some changes in the nginx, I have made something. How to run my system, how to run my container, how to reload
Bash.
it. Now if you see docker
Yes.
ps If I want to Nginx, I want to restart the Nginx. I want to make the changes which I have made. I want to check how exactly the changes are to become in the Nginx. Then the thing is you have to use service
Service. Nginx start.
reload, Nginx reload, Nginx reload. This is the command. See, I am reloading it, but I didn't came out of the container. I'm still inside.
It's not restarting. You need to reload.
This is a basic mistake any DevOps engineer will do in the starting of their careers. Because if you understand CMD perfectly, you will never be able to do this mistake. If you don't understand, because I'm saying the process which you are running, the PS minus EAF, grep, Nginx. This is running on the batch. This is running on the batch. This is running on the master process C. The PID process 1, C1 is this running. The batch which is we have run, that is running on the Nginx. The batch is running on the Nginx. The master process. This is the master process. If you restart, means if you are stopping it in the first place to start it again, obviously the PID will get exit. The PID is stopped. So obviously you are stopping the container, you are exiting from the container. See here, what is the PID it is running on it, what is exactly the process running on right now? The Nginx is running on the process PID 1. See the bash which is there here, we have kept cmd nginx. What else? The cat docker file. Okay, we have kept nginx minus the daemon off because we want to run it as a daemon process. We are running it as a daemon process. We are making the daemon process. We are coming out of the daemon process because we are not running as a bash. We are coming out of the exit process, so it will stop it. So remember this, remember it. This is a very important basic concept when you start working as a DevOps engineer in the Docker. Any questions you have?
No, sure. Clear with the point.
Now I have the images. Now I want to share the images to some other person. How you are gonna do it? How you are gonna do it? How we are actually sharing the code?
Code, Ashok.
Yes, how we are actually sharing the code?
Through GitHub.
The version control system. Using the version control system, we are sharing our code from one person to other person.
Yes.
So the same way, if you want to share your images to some other person, you have to use Docker Hub. Like GitHub, we have a Docker Hub. The account here to create it will be free. Just give a username, email, and password, and log in into it. I already have one, I think. See, you have one. Go create a repo, and with the description, what is the username? First to log in, first to work it out. If you want to provide the images, if you want to log off if you want to pull the images, if you want to push the images, so you have to first log in, Docker login. With this way you will be able to log in. What is the username? See here, this will be the username. What is the password? Enter the password. Now see, if I want to push, if I want to see, if in this repo, in the demo setup, if in this demo setup, if I want to, how the first Docker file, see, this is the one, Docker push to the demo, to this one, Docker push. I want to let me create a repository. I just don't want to use this one.
Ashok, capital D. There is no.
That is for S3 bucket.
Now, if I'm creating a repo, if I want to push, see, what is the one? Docker push. This is the one. So you are already logged in. Docker push. If you have -t, why I'm giving the t? -t is a tag name. -t is a tag name. You are mentioning -t, and what will be the one? What will be the one? See, to push to the new tag to the repository, Docker push. You are already logged in, so you don't have to mention the username. So automatically it will take care of it. Docker push and vulnerability scanning. Okay. Tag name -t tag name, what it will be first, and the image id which you want to push. Docker push -t first means the tag name and the image id. I think it has to be mentioned as tag only. Will become. Let's see first. Just a minute, guys. I want to push only the image. Docker push. Wait a minute. Oh, sorry, my bad. I didn't mention the, yeah, here Docker image tag name and the repository registry host. You're already logged in, right? Mention the image ID. Why it is not mentioning this one? Okay. I just want to push only one thing, not all the things. Just a minute, guys. I don't want to push all the time. I just want to push only one. Docker image push minus C. If I don't want to give all, I just want to give only one. Just a minute, guys. Let me stop my sharing to see the command once. minus t. Yes, right. Sorry, yes, my bad. The thing is that first, when you are building the Docker file, means if you want to push it, first thing is that you have to tag that file. Means like this Docker build dot means whatever the file means Docker file you are having, minus t means you are tagging it to your repo means your name to your username. After that, which in which repo you want to push it, and the tag name, it can be latest, whatever you want to give, you can give it, and it will tag that. It will build a new Docker image for you, and it will be showing like this repository Docker images latest. If you want to push, the command will be Docker push along with this repository dot equals to latest, the tag name. So now it has been pushed into the Docker image. Now if I refresh here, see, now I have a latest one. To build it again, let me show you again. Uh, Change the directory to cmd. There is a Docker file, right? Are you guys able to follow me?
Yes, Ashok.
In this repo, I'm going to drop a new file again, and I'm going to change the name to latest, not latest, version 1. Okay, v1. Now if I build it, now if you see, now if I give Docker images, now there is a tag with v1. Now if I push Docker push, along with the tag name v1, now it will be pushed, but still it will be pushed, the push repository. Oh, it is only one line, so it is not working it out. So let me see. There it has been. See, this is the image. This is the image. To pull, we will take talk about it. If you want to pull it, you will go Docker pull, and whatever you want to do, you can directly take it from here. See, this is the way. Create your Docker credentials with this. Means go, that's very free, you can create it. Create a repo, build a file in it, and do this thing. So I think here we are almost done everything. See, advantage of Docker for developers means once you are developed, you just can directly push it to the production, and you can directly share your images. This is the other thing. And why virtual machine versus Docker containers? See, as I mentioned, it is the smallest and lightweight unit, and it's very faster compared to the boot time, and very easy to integrate. You can, if you want Python, you can directly go from Python. If you want to create from Java, anything can be done. Like let me create make directory Python, and if I want to, Docker file, vim Docker file, and from, you don't have to use every time you want to, you can use from from Python version 3.6. From Python 3.6 command prompt, I just want to make an echo. Python 3.6 is available or not? Let's see first of all. If you want, you can directly pull this image. That can also see Docker pull Python. That's it. It will take care of it. 3.6 is not there. Okay. Python 3.1 escape. Or maybe you can just directly run Vim Docker file. I don't want to have any version. Now the base, now this Docker file will be totally on Python. This will be totally on Python. Here also you can give the tag names. Docker build dot -t. You can mention some tag name. You don't have to mention the repo. You can directly mention the tag name so that it will be tagged. If you want to move that tag, you can use the tags. See, now if you see Docker images, a new image has been created. So this is all about the class today. Any questions, guys? Anything you have in the mind? I think, are you going through the PPT? Means this one.
Yes, Ashok, went through it.
Yes, Ashok. Like whatever you have done yesterday, I went through, Ashok.
Installation part running.
See, this is the image layer. As we mentioned, each image, how exactly Docker container gets from the images, what we have talked. Okay, let's see. Docker image is a collection of read-only layers. True or false?
Yes, for
True, Ashok.
Yeah, that's right. Docker file. So inclusion of base image, how exactly the builds a Docker image. So we have what we have discussed. So you can have a sample Docker file if you want. See, this is the one. See here the entry point used, how they are actually working it out. Used to specify a command to execute when starting the Docker container. The Docker container starting means if it is there, so automatically it will start the application.jar and it will work out, and whatever has been there, it will start working out. You can try this one. Okay, which of the following is not an instruction used in Docker file?
3 point from remove.
Yes, because up to now we have discussed entry point from add. We don't have any command called remove in Docker file. Docker build command usage. This we just talked how exactly the tag can be done. So go through it. I think tomorrow what needs to be done from copy layer 1. As we see overlay layer, if you go to this where lib Docker overlay 2, you will be able to see what exactly. So just one thing. What is the main why virtual machine difference between Docker, and you will be able to get this question, why virtual, if the virtual machine is already there, why Docker? See, every virtual machine have a different kernel means every kernel means Ubuntu has a one kernel, Linux kernel, Debian is one, Red Hat is one different kernel. They are all using a Linux kernel, but all the dockers will be having the same kernel system. So that was the very good reason, that was the main reason why Docker was very helpful, because the Docker will be having the same OS everywhere, same OS. So this, with this OS, we will be able to install anything, everything. So it will be having the same OS for all the containers. This was the main difference. If you want, you can go Google also. It's the same thing. Any questions, guys? If you don't have anything, we will meet up tomorrow. And I'm saying it again, command and entry point. These are all many important topics. The question, if someone is asking about Docker, they will definitely ask this question. Difference between command and CMD and entry point. What was the answer?
Entry point will be the parameter, Ashok.
No. If we mention entry point after executing the line, everything after the entry point, rest all will be taken as its parameter.
Parameters.
The CMD lines will be taken as parameters. CMD lines will be taken as parameter. So which one can be override?
CMD lines can be overridden through by bash.
Bash can also be
See,
overridden.
the bash is also CMD. The bash is also CMD.
Okay.
After the image ID, whatever you are giving, that is also CMD. That overrides the CMD in the Docker file.
In the Docker.
Not bash. You just say bash. No, don't. You can give anything there. That doesn't mean that I have given Ashok, I may have given Puneet also.
Okay.
Whatever you provide it there, it will override the CMD lines written in the Docker file, which can't be overwritten.
Entry point cannot be overridden.
Even if you have given the CMD lines, CMD in the after image ID.
Sorry, Ashok.
Even if you give the CMD after the image ID, you still the entry point will be overridden or not?
No, it cannot be. Entry point can never be overridden.
That's fine. That is the basic, and you should have this knowledge. Okay, guys, that's it for today. I think maximum I have completed about the Docker. Now we just have to know how exactly we have to run. We have to pull the Docker images. That is, we have pushed it, but we will be able to learn about the pull tomorrow. It's just only pull, and after that, we'll talk about the Docker orchestration and everything going forward. If you don't have any questions, go through the video, learn doing the Docker, create a Docker Hub account and start working on it. You can push the images, you can do anything, how to work it out, how to run out it, check it out, practice.
Sure.